The one-armed rancher had convinced himself that no woman would want damaged goods, especially not a black woman who deserved better than his broken body and failing ranch. Then thunder cracked the April sky like a whip, and she appeared through the rain. Ezekiel Thornfield watched from his porch as lightning illuminated the lone rider. Water streamed from her dark cloak. Her horse stumbled, exhausted. She dismounted with careful grace, leading the animal toward his cabin. The woman stepped into the yellow spill of his lantern light. Rain had plastered her black hair against bronze skin. Her eyes held the kind of desperation that made decent men do foolish things. "Please, sir." Her voice carried education and exhaustion in equal measure. "I only need shelter for one night." Zeke's empty sleeve hung pinned against his chest. The phantom ache of his missing arm pulsed with the storm's rhythm. He studied her face, searching for pity or revulsion, found neither. "Storm's getting worse." He stepped aside. She led her horse to his small barn first, tended the animal before herself. Zeke noted this through the rain-streaked window. Character revealed itself in such moments. Inside, she dripped onto his rough wooden floor. The firelight caught the determined set of her jaw. Beautiful but worn thin by whatever had driven her into this weather. "I'm Ayanna." She didn't offer more. "Zeke." She nodded toward his pinned sleeve without flinching. "The war, Antietam." The word tasted like copper and grief. Yana accepted the blanket he offered, wrapped it around her shoulders like armor. They sat in silence while wind rattled the cabin walls. 3 riders materialized through the storm, their horses fighting the mud. Torches hissed in the rain. Zeke felt Ayanna go rigid beside him. "They cannot know I'm here." Her whisper carried the weight of life and death. The riders circled his property. Their leader wore a long coat that marked him as someone with money, someone used to getting what he wanted. They searched his barn, peered through windows. Zeke kept still as stone. After an eternity, they rode on. Ayanna's shoulders sagged with relief. "Who are they?" "Men who believe they own things that cannot be owned." Her words held bitter experience. Dawn revealed more than Zeke expected. Gianna moved through his land with knowing eyes. She stopped at his cattle pen, studied the animals with concern. "This one," she pointed to a heifer standing apart from the others, "and those 3, they're sick." Zeke had missed it completely. The signs were subtle but clear once she showed him. Clouded eyes, labored breathing, the way healthy cattle avoided the infected ones. "How do you know?" "My grandmother taught me to read what the land and animals say." Yana knelt beside his struggling vegetable garden. "This soil needs healing too." She gathered plants from his property's edges, weeds he would have burned. Her hands worked with practiced skill, creating remedies from what others discarded. The sick cattle improved within hours. Zeke watched in amazement as animals he'd feared losing returned to strength. This woman possessed knowledge worth more than gold, but knowledge carried its own dangers. "Why are those men hunting you?" Yana's jaw tightened. She pulled a leather pouch from her cloak. Inside were papers covered in official-looking script and numbers. "Cornelius Blackwood wants these back." Her voice held disgust. "Along with me." "Who's Blackwood?" "A trader who sells to army forts. Also the man my family arranged for me to marry." She touched her cheek where a faded bruise lingered. "He's had 2 native wives before me. Both died from mysterious falls." The papers told a darker story. Bills of sale for cattle, correspondence with fort commanders, dates and numbers that painted a picture of systematic corruption. "He's been selling sick cattle to the army." Yana's finger traced the damning evidence. "Soldiers are dying from contaminated beef. These papers prove it." Zeke understood now why Blackwood hunted her so desperately. This evidence could destroy him, hang him. You could expose him. Who would believe a runaway Comanche woman against a wealthy white trader? Yana's laugh held no humor. "I'm not even supposed to read, much less understand business documents." She folded the papers carefully. "I thought I could trade these for my freedom. Threatened to reveal his crimes if he didn't release me from the marriage contract." Her voice dropped. "I underestimated his desperation." Zeke felt the weight of choice settling on his shoulders. Help her and risk Blackwood's wrath, turn her away and live with cowardice. The one night you asked for. Yes. Seems your cattle need more time to heal properly. Something shifted in Ayana's expression. Hope, fragile as spring ice, crept into her eyes. That's very kind but dangerous for you. Zeke looked at his ranch with new understanding. The failing cattle, the struggling crops, the loneliness that ate at him like infection. This woman had brought healing in a single day. I've been dead inside for 2 years. He met her gaze. Might as well risk living. Thunder rolled in the distance. More storms were coming. One night became 3, then a week. The cattle grew stronger under Ayana's care, and Zeke found himself watching her hands as she worked. Capable hands that knew healing. She showed him how to manage rope with his remaining arm, how to brace against his body's weight differently. The phantom pain in his missing limb quieted when she adjusted his stance, her touch brief and professional. The war took your arm. Her voice held no pity. But not your strength. Zeke felt something long frozen begin to thaw. He had convinced himself that half a man couldn't do a full man's work. Ayana proved him wrong with patient guidance and unspoken faith. The morning sun painted the horizon gold when she first smiled. A real smile, not the careful mask she wore around strangers. It transformed her face completely, and Zeke felt his chest tighten with something dangerous. His supplies ran low. A trip to town became necessary. You should stay here. Yana straightened from the herb garden she'd planted. I need to see what people know, what they're saying. It won't be friendly. Neither was my grandmother's reservation. I survived that too. They rode into San Antonio together. Zeke's wagon creaked under the weight of produce Ayana had coaxed from his struggling land. Tomatoes that actually ripened. Corn that stood straight and full. Eyes followed them down Main Street. Conversations died as they passed. Zeke had faced hostile stares before, but this felt different, heavier. The town's judgment pressed down like summer heat. At the general store, Mrs. Adelaide Hutchinson's voice carried too well. That Thornfield boy's lost his mind along with his arm. She clutched her Bible close. Bringing that savage woman to town, shameful. Other voices joined the chorus. Whispers about impropriety, about mixing races, about the natural order of things. Zeke's jaw clenched, but Ayana's hand touched his elbow, a gentle warning. Let them talk. Her voice stayed level. Words can't kill us, but words could wound. Zeke saw how Ayana held herself straighter, her face becoming a beautiful, impenetrable mask. The woman who smiled in his garden disappeared behind armor built from years of such encounters. They loaded supplies in tense silence. The storekeeper counted their money twice, as if expecting deception, charged them extra for goods that should have cost less. Zeke paid without argument, knowing that protest would only fuel more gossip. On the ride home, Ayana finally spoke. You don't have to endure this for me. I'm not enduring anything. Zeke kept his eyes on the road. Those people have small minds and smaller hearts. Still, your life was simpler before. Simpler, not better. She studied his profile. Something passed between them, unspoken but understood. The attraction that had been building like a slow fire finally acknowledged itself. That evening, they sat on his porch watching stars emerge. The distance between them felt electric and fragile at once. Zeke wanted to reach for her hand. Instead, he gripped his chair arm until his knuckles went white. I dream about the war sometimes. His voice came rough. About the moment the cannonball took my arm, I used to wake up angry. And now I dream about other things. Jana's breath caught. The night air carried the scent of the herbs she'd planted. Growth, renewal, hope taking root in broken ground. Zeke, I know this is complicated. More than complicated, but neither moved away. The space between them hummed with possibility and restraint. The sound of approaching horses shattered the moment. 3 riders emerged from the darkness, their faces hard in the moonlight. The leader wore a badge that caught the lamplight. Sheriff Tobias Crane dismounted with deliberate slowness. His deputies flanked him, hands resting on their gun belts, not threatening, just present. Evening Thornfield. Sheriff, Crane's pale eyes found Ayana, studied her with the calculating gaze of a man appraising livestock. Heard you're harboring a runaway. I'm harboring a guest. Guest. Crane tasted the word. Interesting way to put it. See, I got word from a Mr. Cornelius Blackwood. Seems he's missing some property. Ayana went very still. Her hands rested in her lap, but Zeke could see the tension coiling in her shoulders. Don't know any Blackwood. Course you don't. Crane's smile held no warmth. Funny thing, though. Description matches your guest perfectly. Comanche woman, dark hair, pretty enough to cause trouble. The sheriff walked closer to the porch. His boots rang hollow on the wooden steps. Now, I'm not saying you meant any harm, Thornfield. Man gets lonely out here, makes poor decisions. His voice carried false sympathy, but harboring another man's property is a serious matter. She's not property. That's not for you to decide. Ayana rose from her chair with fluid grace, faced the sheriff without flinching. I'm not bound to any man, Sheriff Crane. Mr. Blackwood says different, says you got a legal marriage contract. Arranged without my consent. Consent's not required for legal arrangements between families. Crane's voice hardened. You best come along peaceful-like. Zeke stood, his one arm steady at his side. She's under my protection. Your protection, Crane laughed. What protection can half a man provide? The words hit their mark. Zeke felt the old shame rise in his throat, but Ayana's presence steadied him. She had shown him his worth. These men couldn't take that away. More than you'd expect. Crane's expression shifted. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I'll be back, Thornfield, with proper papers. When I return, she better be ready to leave. He tipped his hat mockingly. Wouldn't want any unpleasantness. The sheriff and his men rode away, leaving dust and menace hanging in the air. Yana sank back into her chair, her composure finally cracking. He's Blackwood's cousin. Her voice shook slightly. I should have recognized the name. How do you know? Blackwood bragged about having law enforcement in the family. Said it made certain problems disappear. She touched the faded bruise on her cheek. Like troublesome wives. Zeke felt fury building in his chest. Clean, righteous anger that burned away self-doubt. He won't take you. You can't fight the law. I can fight corrupt men hiding behind badges. Yana looked at him with something approaching wonder. Here was a man willing to risk everything for her freedom, for her dignity. They'll destroy you. Then we'd better make sure they don't succeed. The night wind carried the promise of more storms. The documents told a story written in blood and greed. Yana spread them across Zeke's kitchen table while lamplight flickered over the damning evidence. Bills of sale for diseased cattle, letters arranging deliveries to army forts, death certificates that arrived weeks later. Fort Richardson lost 12 soldiers last month. Yana's finger traced the medical reports. Fort Concho lost 8, all from contaminated beef fever. Zeke studied the papers with growing horror. Names of dead soldiers stared back at him. Boys who had survived battles only to die from poisoned meat sold by a man who counted profits over lives. Blackwood knows you have these. He knows I understand what they mean. Yana's voice carried bitter knowledge. He thought marrying an illiterate savage would keep his secrets safe. Discovered too late that my grandmother taught me to read English better than most white men. The weight of choice settled heavy between them. These papers could destroy Blackwood, but only if someone believed Ayana's testimony, only if she survived long enough to give it. There has to be someone, some honest lawman. Federal marshals, maybe. But they're weeks away and Crane won't let us send word. Yana refolded the documents with careful precision. We could run, take these papers and disappear into Comanche territory. Running means more soldiers die. Fighting means we probably die. Zeke looked at his one good hand. Scarred from ranch work, steady enough to hold reins and fire a rifle, maybe steady enough to hold justice. I've been dead inside for 2 years. His voice found strength in the admission. Rather die fighting than live as a coward. Something shifted in Ayana's expression. The careful distance she maintained cracked, revealing the woman beneath the survivor's armor. You don't understand what you're choosing. I understand enough. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Adelaide Hutchinson approached the cabin alone, her usual Bible replaced by a worn leather satchel. Her face looked carved from grief and determination. Zeke emerged onto the porch, his hand instinctively checking his rifle's position. The woman who had publicly condemned him now stood in his yard with tears tracking down her cheeks. "Mrs. Hutchinson, I need to speak with you, both of you." Her voice broke on the words. "About Cornelius Blackwood." Gianna appeared in the doorway, wary but curious. The older woman's eyes found hers with desperate intensity. "My boy died at Fort Richardson." The words came hard, forced through a mother's anguish. "Private Samuel Hutchinson. They said it was fever, but I know different now." She opened her satchel with shaking hands. Inside lay letters written in a young man's careful script. Letters describing stomach sickness that swept through the fort after bad beef arrived. Letters that stopped coming 3 months ago. Samuel wrote about the meat, how it smelled wrong, how the cattle looked sick when they arrived. Mrs. Hutchinson's composure crumbled. "Blackwood killed my son as surely as if he'd shot him." Iana stepped forward, her face softening with shared grief. "I'm sorry for your loss. Don't apologize to me." The older woman's voice turned fierce. "I apologize to you for the things I said, for the judgment I passed." She looked at Zeke. "For calling you half a man when you're twice the man most others are." The transformation stunned them both. The town's moral authority stood before them seeking forgiveness and offering alliance. "What do you want from us?" "Justice for my boy, for all the boys Blackwood murdered." Mrs. Hutchinson straightened her shoulders. "I have contacts in Austin, church friends who correspond with federal authorities. I can get word out about those papers. Crane will try to stop you. Crane doesn't watch preachers' wives as carefully as he watches pretty Comanche women." Her smile held steel beneath the sorrow. "Sometimes being invisible has advantages." Hope flickered in the growing darkness. Gianna pulled the documents from her cloak, handling them with reverent care. "These prove everything." Mrs. Hutchinson studied the papers with growing amazement. "How did you get them?" "Blackwood kept them in his office. Thought I couldn't read well enough to understand their meaning." Gianna's voice hardened. "Men's arrogance makes them careless." "Can you get them to Austin?" "I can try. But Blackwood knows you're here. Time's running short." The older woman refolded the papers carefully. "He's planning something, soon." As if summoned by her words, dust clouds appeared on the horizon, riders approaching fast. "Too many riders for a social visit. Go." Zeke's voice cut sharp through the evening air. "Take the back trail toward town." Mrs. Hutchinson mounted her horse with surprising agility. "Hold them off as long as you can." She rode hard toward San Antonio, carrying hope and evidence in equal measure. Zeke and Ayana watched until she disappeared into the gathering dusk. "Think she'll make it?" "She has to." They turned to face the approaching storm. Blackwood himself rode at the head of 8 armed men. His face wore the confident expression of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. The riders formed a semicircle around the cabin. Blackwood dismounted with theatrical flair, his expensive coat unmarked by trail dust. A man who paid others to get dirty while he stayed clean. "Miss Crow Feather, you've led us quite a chase." Yana stepped beside Zeke, her presence steady and unafraid. "Mr. Blackwood, time to come home. Your family's getting worried." "My family sold me to you." "That's different than worrying." Blackwood's smile never wavered, but his eyes went cold. "Marriage contracts are legal documents, binding agreements between families. Agreements I never signed. Your signature wasn't required." He gestured toward his men. "Now we can do this easy or hard, your choice." Zeke stepped forward, his one arm hanging loose and ready. "She's not going anywhere." "Thornfield." Blackwood's voice carried mock sympathy. "Look around, count the guns. Use what's left of your brain." The insult hit home, but Zeke's resolve didn't waver. Iana had shown him his worth. "These men couldn't steal that back. I can count just fine. Then you know how this ends." "Maybe. But you'll pay a price." Blackwood studied Zeke's face, searching for weakness or bluff, found neither. His expression shifted to something uglier. "Last chance, cripple, hand her over." The word hung in the air between them. Final, irrevocable. Zeke's answer came quiet but clear. No. The dying light caught the tension in 8 trigger fingers. Violence balanced on a knife's edge, waiting for someone to tip the scales. In the distance, a night bird called. Wind stirred the dust between them. Time held its breath. The standoff stretched taut as barbed wire. 8 guns against 1 man and 1 woman. Blackwood's confidence grew with each passing second. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Zeke's hand stayed steady near his rifle. "Sometimes hard is the only way to live with yourself." Blackwood gestured impatiently. His men shifted in their saddles, fingers caressing triggers. The taste of violence hung thick in the evening air. "Take her." The nearest rider spurred his horse forward. Yana stepped back against the cabin wall, her eyes never leaving Zeke's face. If this was their end, they would meet it together. Hoofbeats thundered from the south. New riders crested the hill, their horses lathered and blown. Mrs. Hutchinson led them, her gray hair streaming behind her like a battle flag. Behind her rode 6 men wearing federal badges. U.S. Marshals with the authority to arrest anyone, including corrupt local sheriffs and murderous cattle traders. Blackwood's face went white as old bone. His men's guns wavered, suddenly uncertain of their targets. "Mr. Cornelius Blackwood," the lead marshal's voice carried the weight of federal law. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and accessory to murder." "This is ridiculous. I'm a respected businessman." "You're a man who sold diseased cattle to army forts, causing the deaths of dozens of soldiers." The marshal dismounted with deliberate calm. "We have documents proving everything." Mrs. Hutchinson's eyes found Zeke's across the yard. She nodded once, sharp and satisfied. The papers had reached Austin. Justice would finally have its day. Blackwood's composure cracked completely. "You can't prove anything. Those documents are stolen property, evidence obtained by a witness to your crimes." The marshal's hand rested on his gun. "Miss Crowfeather's testimony corroborates everything. The word of some savage woman against mine. The word of a citizen against a criminal." The marshal's voice hardened. "Makes no difference to federal law what color she is." Blackwood looked around desperately. His men were already lowering their weapons, unwilling to fight federal marshals over a lost cause. Self-preservation trumped loyalty when the badges were real. "Sheriff Crane will vouch for me." Sheriff Crane is also under arrest. Turns out taking bribes from cattle murderers is frowned upon by federal authorities. The marshal produced iron shackles. "Now you can come quiet or loud. Your choice." The fight went out of Blackwood all at once. His shoulders sagged as reality settled over him. The empire built on corruption and violence was crumbling into dust. As the marshals led him away in chains, Blackwood's eyes found Ayanna one last time. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Her voice carried the finality of a closing door. The federal trial lasted 3 days. Ayanna's testimony, delivered in clear, educated English, demolished Blackwood's defense. The documents spoke for themselves. Dozens of soldier deaths traced directly to contaminated beef sold for maximum profit. The jury needed less than an hour to reach their verdict. Guilty on all counts. 20 years in federal prison. Zeke sat in the courtroom gallery, watching Ayanna face down a system designed to ignore women like her. She stood straight and uncompromising, her words sharp as Damascus steel, beautiful in her righteous anger. When the gavel fell, she turned and found his eyes. The smile that bloomed across her face could have lit the entire courthouse. Outside, Mrs. Hutchinson waited with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she embraced Ayanna with fierce gratitude. "My Samuel can rest now. All those boys can rest now." The 3 of them stood in the Austin sunshine, unlikely allies bonded by shared purpose. The town gossips would have plenty to say about their friendship. Let them talk. Back at the ranch, life found new rhythms. Zeke's cattle thrived under Ayanna's care. His crops grew strong in soil she had healed with ancient knowledge and patient work. The land itself seemed to approve of their partnership. One evening, as spring painted the sky in shades of hope, Zeke found courage for words he'd carried too long. "Ayanna." She looked up from the herb garden, dirt on her hands and satisfaction in her eyes. "I love you." The words hung between them, simple and clean. No elaborate speeches or flowery poetry, just truth spoken plain. "I know." Her smile held warmth and mischief in equal measure. "I've been waiting for you to figure it out. Marry me. Is that a question or a demand? A hope?" She wiped her hands on her apron, taking her time with the answer, making him wait not from cruelty, but from the sweet anticipation of a woman who knew her own worth. "Yes." They married on a hill overlooking the ranch, with Mrs. Hutchinson performing the ceremony and federal marshals serving as witnesses. The bride wore wildflowers in her hair. The groom wore his best shirt and a smile that could have cracked his face. The vows blended traditions from two cultures, creating something entirely new, something that belonged only to them. 5 years later, their ranch prospered beyond all expectations. Healthy cattle grazed on healing land. 2 adopted children played in the yard, loved regardless of their bloodlines. A black boy whose parents died of fever. A Comanche girl whose family perished in a cavalry raid. Love had built something lasting from broken pieces. On stormy nights, Zeke sometimes thought about the evening Ayana had appeared through the rain, how close he'd come to turning her away, how different his life would be without her healing touch. She would find him on the porch during these reflections, settling beside him with the easy comfort of a woman secure in her place. They would watch lightning dance across the sky and count their blessings in comfortable silence. The one-armed rancher had been wrong about many things. Most importantly, he'd been wrong about his own worth. Love had taught him that wholeness came not from perfect bodies but from perfect trust. When strangers sought shelter from storms, they opened their door without hesitation, offered the same mercy they had once needed. Some nights changed everything if you were brave enough to let them. The wind carried the scent of growing things across their land, healing ground, sacred space, home, and that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel, and if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.